An ultimatum from the stars. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Forum was tense enough to warp gravity. Species from over 300 civilizations crowded the spiraling tiers of the Assembly Hall, murmuring in 1,000 dialects. Holoscreens flickered, broadcasting the emergency session across half the known galaxy. A war declaration was coming. Everyone knew it. The question was whether it would end before it began. At the center, towering over the podium, stood Threx Valkar, Supreme Executor of the Zerenthi Empire. 12 feet of glistening obsidian armor, ceremonial plasma axes crossed at his back. His voice cut through the air like a cleaver, low, guttural, and full of practiced menace. The Terran Federation will cede the Allery border worlds immediately, Threx snarled, or face total military eradication. A hush fell over the chamber. The declaration echoed off the curved obsidian walls. Species that had never known war trembled. Empires that had endured millennia of peace whispered among themselves. Then came a sound. Click, clack, sip. Ambassador Lyra Quinn stepped into the center of the chamber, one heel clicking with casual defiance. She was late. She was also holding a cup of coffee. Not the sleek nutrient packs most diplomats used, but an old ceramic mug with Earth's best bureaucrat in chipped blue paint. She stopped at the base of the podium, tilted her head at Threx, and blew on her coffee. "Sorry, traffic," she said, motioning vaguely towards space. "Is this a joke?" Threx growled. "No," Lyra said, pulling out a datapad and scrolling. "Let's see. Threat of planetary annihilation, genocidal overture. Oh, here it is. Ultimatum. Right." She looked up, eyes unreadable behind aviator sunglasses. "Got it. Thanks for waiting." Threx's voice thundered. "You mock the authority of the Zerenthi Empire?" "No, Executor. I mock your dramatic flair," Lyra said, brushing a lock of black hair behind her ear. "You know, if we had a drink every time someone threatened to eradicate us, we'd still be hung over from last week." Gasps rippled across the chamber. The aquatic Zalari blinked their eye stalks in shock. Even a usually emotionless RVA clicked in disapproval. Threx stepped forward, shadow swallowing the floor between them. "You do not comprehend the might of the Empire," he snarled. "We have conquered 100 systems before your species lit fire in caves." Lyra gave him a thin smile. "And yet here I am, fire-lit cave woman with diplomatic credentials." He loomed, bristling with weaponry and rage. She sipped her coffee. "Perhaps," Threx hissed, "we should make an example of Earth. Show the galaxy what insolence costs." Lyra finally looked up, sunglasses lowered just enough to reveal sharp gray eyes. For a heartbeat, the chamber held its breath. "You could," she said quietly, "but then you'd have to survive the response." Threx sneered. "You threaten us?" "No, I'm advising you." She tapped her datapad, and a series of holoscreens flared to life, displaying the now infamous Dread Protocol, Terran defense grids, orbital stealth fleets, quantum AI logistics, and the ghost fleets of Sol, humanity's deadliest weapons, never deployed. Not yet. There was no bravado in her tone, just simple, deadly certainty. "We don't bark," Lyra said, folding her arms. "We bite, and we don't ask permission." Threx's jaw clenched. "Your species is reckless. Arrogant." She raised a brow. "We're recent. There's a difference." Another murmur through the forum. An elderly Solari elder leaned over to her aide and whispered, "They're going to push the humans too far again." Lyra closed her datapad with a snap. "So here's my counteroffer," she said. "Withdraw your fleets, rescind your claim, and let's all pretend you didn't just threaten the species that built orbital railguns before perfecting interstellar cappuccino." Threx's gauntlet creaked as he clenched it. "You'll regret this insolence." "No," Lyra said, finishing her coffee. "You will." She turned without ceremony, her coat flaring behind her. As she walked off the dais, silence followed, broken only by the soft hiss of Threx's breath, heavy with rage. At the chamber's exit, she paused beside a young intern trembling in the corner. "War?" the intern asked, wide-eyed. Lyra shrugged. "Maybe. I penciled it in for Thursday." Then she disappeared into the shadows of the hall, leaving a galaxy in stunned silence. Bureaucracy and battleships. Earth's moon glowed like a polished coin above the diplomatic sector. Nestled beneath its surface, the Terran Federation Strategic Diplomatic Corps buzzed with quiet tension. Holograms flickered along the walls. Tactical readouts scroll-rolled across desks, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and bureaucracy. Ambassador Lyra Quinn sat at the head of a steel-gray conference table, legs crossed, datapad balanced on her knee. A half-finished coffee cooled beside her. Around her, generals, analysts, and aides projected updates into the air. The Zerenthi fleet is amassing near the Allery Expanse, said Commander Zhao, pointing to a growing cluster of red blips on the star map. 3 dreadnoughts, 9 cruisers, support craft. Could be a bluff, could be a warm-up. Lyra barely looked up. They're not bluffing. Threx is too proud, too stupid. Across the room, Director Kamei of Military Intelligence frowned. If they push, we can respond with the protocol. But we'll take losses. Civilians on Allery. 3 trade ships in the Kepler corridor. We'll handle it, Lyra said, swiping her pad. Deploy our orbital stealth fleet to the fringe. No lights, no signals. Just a little shadow breathing down their neck. Zhao hesitated. That could be seen as an escalation. Lyra looked up, cool and unmoved. They threatened genocide. I sent a ghost to watch them sleep. Let's not pretend we're the ones crossing lines. Kamei folded her arms. We need to consider diplomacy. We are. I'm here, aren't I? Lyra stood, walking toward the main screen. It displayed the Zerenthi fleet's slow, deliberate creep toward human space. They're used to weakness, politeness. That's how they conquered half the Outer Rim. But humanity doesn't do threats well. Kamei gave her a long look. You really think they'll go through with it? Oh, I know they will, Lyra said. They think we're still new to the game. What they don't realize is we studied from every monster before them. Silence settled like dust. Outside the lunar base's viewport, Earth rotated peacefully beneath a shield grid that had never once fired in anger. But it could, and the galaxy knew it. Lyra's datapad chirped. Encrypted message. Bastion contact pending. She dismissed it with a flick. Not yet. They weren't there yet. Continue surveillance, she ordered. Ready the fleet for blackout drills. I want our response fast, quiet, and surgical. As the room cleared, Kamei lingered behind. You're really not afraid, are you? Lyra gave a small, dry smile. I've seen what fear does to a room. It leaks. Fills every decision. I don't let it in. Kamei shook her head. They're betting on us, hesitating. Then they've already lost. 2 hours later, Lyra stood on the balcony of the lunar diplomatic spire, looking out across the cratered surface. Stars glittered like shattered ice. Somewhere out there, fleets prepared for war. A voice chimed from her earpiece. You're being summoned to speak with the president. Lyra sighed. Tell her I'm on my way. And bring another coffee. The Terran presidential dome was sleek, circular, and far too bright. President Rena Sorrel, a sharp-eyed woman with military roots, stood before a wraparound display showing economic stats and strategic maps. She didn't look up as Lyra entered. You made quite the impression, Rena said. Glad to hear my tax dollars are still working, Lyra replied, sipping her fresh brew. Rena turned, arms crossed. The Galactic Forum is in chaos. Half our trade routes are stalling. Colonies are on edge. This isn't a joke. I never said it was, Lyra said, stepping closer. But they came to the forum with threats, not terms. I gave them an exit. They didn't take it. The president studied her. You're calm. Too calm. Lyra's voice was quiet but ironclad. Because fear doesn't win wars. Planning does. We've had one for this exact scenario since first contact. We always knew someone would challenge us. It was just a matter of time. And if they call our bluff? We're not bluffing. Rena exhaled, long and slow. You'll have to authorize escalation. The moment they cross the demarcation line. Lyra finished for her. We hit back fast and hard. Rena nodded. Do what you have to. As Lyra left the dome, her earpiece pinged again. Encrypted channel opened. General Bastion awaiting response. She stared at it for a long moment, then tapped the interface. Quinn here. A voice, deep and metallic. answered, still playing diplomat, Lyra. Until someone gives me a reason not to. The Empire's giving you one. Lyra's lips curled into a tired smile. Good. I was starting to get bored. First shot. Last mistake. The first shot wasn't announced. It came in silence. A Terran mining outpost on Allery, 3B, population 12,348, blinked off the grid at 3:17 Universal Time Coordinated. No distress call. No defensive activation. Just static. By 3:20, a high-orbit satellite flagged irregular atmospheric entry signatures. 9, then 15. The outpost's auto-defense logs, recovered later, showed only the words. Zerenthi designation confirmed. By 3:23, a reply had already left Earth. The Zerenthi incursion fleet, smug in its advance, was midway through refueling at a captured orbital station when the Terran response arrived. It was not a grand armada, not a show of strength. It was a single ship. Designation, TSV Vengeance. Class, Interdictor Frigate. Status, Black Ops. Crew, 0. The Zerenthi commander laughed when they saw it. A lonely frigate dropping from quantum fold space, drifting silent as dust. They stopped laughing when it didn't broadcast identification codes. They screamed when it opened its bays. What followed wasn't war. It was surgery. The Vengeance moved like thought. Impossibly fast, absolutely precise. Its automated targeting AI didn't hesitate, didn't warn, didn't negotiate. It simply cut. Within 90 seconds, 3 Zerenthi cruisers had been torn in half by tungsten slugs, traveling at Mach 80. The fuel depot detonated, scattering glowing wreckage across space. The Dreadnought's command bridge was pierced, decompressed, and left spinning dead in orbit, its commander choking on vacuum before he could send a distress call. By 3:29, the Vengeance folded out, leaving nothing but fire and data trails behind. Ambassador Lyra Quinn watched the playback from a briefing room deep beneath Earth's surface. No music, no sound effects, just real-time combat footage and the rising tally of destroyed ships. A junior analyst beside her finally spoke. Should we issue a formal declaration? Lyra didn't look away from the screen. They declared war the second they fired. A pause. Then, wasn't this overkill? No, she said. Overkill would have been bringing the fleet. She stood, brushed non-existent dust from her coat, and walked toward the exit. Prep my transmission to the Galactic Forum. Live feed. 10 minutes. The Galactic Forum had seen drama before, heated debates, interspecies trade wars, a memorable shoe-throwing incident during the Thermar Accords. But nothing like this. A live feed shimmered into existence at the center of the chamber, showing Lyra in crisp diplomatic black, standing in front of Earth's crest. She didn't bow, didn't smile. Earlier today, she began, the Zerenthi fleet crossed into Terran space, violated sovereign borders, and attacked a civilian outpost. Murmurs surged like waves. Threx Valkar, seated with arms crossed, said nothing. His jaw worked, grinding enamel. Lyra continued. Our response was immediate. Surgical. We targeted only military assets. No prisoners. No warnings. She held up a small datapad. A now present footage from the operation. For 65 silent seconds, the chamber watched ships explode in slow, horrifying detail. When the playback ended, Lyra set the pad down and looked directly at the camera. Humanity has no interest in war, but we will never apologize for surviving it. The camera lingered on her face. Calm, controlled, and unmistakably deadly. Then the feed cut. In a dark corner of the forum, Threx finally stood. This is madness, he hissed to his adjutant. They escalate with murder, and the galaxy applauds. Sir, the aide whispered, our fleet, our command, was annihilated in minutes. The other nations are unsettled. Threx's hand clenched around the edge of the rail. They were nothing a century ago. And now, the aide asked carefully. Threx didn't answer. Back on Earth, Lyra stood in the quiet of the observation deck above the strategic core. Below, Earth turned slowly, peaceful, indifferent. A soft ping echoed in her earpiece. General Bastion, connected. His voice was low and metallic. I saw the footage. I assumed you would. You authorized the vengeance? Yes. Silence. I didn't think you had the authority, Bastion said. I didn't, but they made me. More silence. Then, the Dread Protocol is 2 orders away from activation. I know. You think he'll back down? Lyra looked out at the stars, at the darkness beyond Sol. I think they just saw the face of extinction. And for the first time, they realized it wasn't wearing fangs. It was wearing a suit and sipping coffee. Bastion's voice was low. They'll come harder next time. Then they'll break harder. She ended the call. Outside the glass, distant satellites drifted like lazy sharks in orbit. The world was quiet again for now. Surrender and sabotage. The Zerenthi Empire did not surrender with banners or bows. They sent a courier drone, scarred, old tech, clearly cobbled together in haste. It entered Terran space at sublight speed, a physical gesture in a galaxy where messages moved faster than thought. The drone docked at Earth's outer station and played a single message. Ceasefire. Terms to be discussed. The Executor seeks audience. In the secure chamber beneath the Terran diplomatic corps, Lyra Quinn leaned back in her chair, coffee in hand, legs crossed over one another like she had all the time in the universe. I assume we're verifying this isn't a trap? She asked. Across from her, Director Kamei nodded. Already underway. The encryption signatures are authentic. This came directly from Zerenthi High Command. Commander Zhao tapped the display, enlarging a scan of the drone's internal systems. They're not even trying to hide their desperation. No firewalls, no false trails. It's real. Lyra took a long sip. Good. Have them meet us on Virilia Station. Neutral ground. Let's see how polite they get when there's nothing left to threaten us with. Virilia Station hovered like a pale metal halo over a dying star, forgotten by time and spared only because no one cared enough to destroy it. It was the kind of place diplomats used when they didn't trust each other enough to meet anywhere else. Lyra arrived first, of course. She stepped into the central chamber with her usual unhurried grace, her boots echoing against the steel floor. Behind her, a pair of silent guards flanked the walls. Not soldiers, not armed. Just there like shadows. 5 minutes later, Executor Threx Valkar entered. He looked smaller. Not physically. He was still nearly twice Lyra's height, but the fury was gone from his eyes. What remained was cold calculation. Lyra gestured to the chair across from hers. You wanted an audience. Here it is. Threx didn't sit. He stared at her, and for once there was no sneer. You've humiliated the Empire. You've humiliated yourselves, Lyra said evenly. We just highlighted it. Threx's fists tightened, then slowly relaxed. You're not what I expected from your species, and you're exactly what I expected from yours. They locked eyes in silence. Then, finally, Threx sat. I come to discuss terms. Then discuss, Lyra said, sipping her coffee. But know this, we are not interested in tribute, territory, or vengeance. We want stability. Threx exhaled, as if the word itself was foreign to him. You will withdraw all forces from the Allery Expanse, Lyra continued, tone steady. You will issue a public statement accepting responsibility for the attack and forfeit any claims against Terran territory. In exchange, we will not escalate further. You live to sulk another day. Threx hesitated. You asked too much. Lyra didn't blink. We already took more. He stared, then gave a small, bitter nod. I will relay the terms. Good, Lyra said, standing. Then we're done here. But as she turned to leave, Threx said, there are factions within the Empire who will not accept this. You haven't won. Not completely. She paused, glancing back over her shoulder. I don't need to win. I just need you to lose loudly enough that no one else tries this again. Hours later, as the diplomatic channels cooled and ships returned to safe space, a signal was intercepted near Mars. Faint, masked, a hidden Zerenthi cell. Still active, still planning. The broadcast was simple. Stage 3 is in motion. Asset remains embedded. Target, Quinn. Lyra returned to Earth to applause, headlines, and a dozen bureaucratic briefings she ignored entirely. She didn't care about press cycles, or the commemorative plaque the Senate insisted on giving her. She cared about silence, about shadows, because war wasn't over when the last shot was fired. It was over when the last grudge was buried, and some grudges dug deep. 2 nights later, she sat alone in her apartment high above Earth's skyline, lights dimmed, windows open to the stars. A soft breeze stirred the air. She poured herself a glass of scotch and stared out across the city, feeling the tension settle somewhere just behind her lungs. Then the door chimed. She didn't move, just sipped. Enter. A figure stepped inside, General Bastion, in civilian wear, tall and weathered. The only other person who knew what the end of a war really looked like. He held out a small black drive. "We intercepted this from a buried signal hub near Phobos," he said. "You're a target." She took it, glanced at it, and dropped it beside her drink. "I assumed I would be." Bastion sat across from her. "You're not worried?" Lyra smiled, slow and tired. "Let them try. We're not done teaching them how badly they've misjudged us." And outside, Earth turned quietly beneath the stars, peaceful but never defenseless.